something that non-academics, just reframe here, that what is something that non-academic that your PhD has taught you? So it's not the academic aspects of your PhD, but the non-academic aspect that your PhD has taught.
How to manage myself, very simply. Yeah, because you face a lot. I worked before in the industry, in some search optimization stuff, and even before I was a seller, and even before I was a waiter. So of course you learn from each job, but because it was extremely intensive, and I didn't get it in my master, because the master was an undergrad, basically a student. So you don't need to start to work on something that mini change the world, right?
Yeah, I mean you have to start small.
Yeah, exactly. So it's more like getting tests. It's more about exams and things and getting the grades. So it's different. PhD, you really work on the project, huge, and you finally have to read articles to build your own project. It's completely different. Of course, in master you have maybe some glimpses with some rotations or master thesis. It's more, but PhD is huge. So in this sense, I really managed to. I was faced so many challenges, like internal challenges, in terms of sometimes I was very depressed because of the results for whatever we didn't go out, and then I couldn't communicate. And you also learn leadership, because once at some point you also get students, you have to have to lead, right?
Yeah.
So it's leadership and a lot of soft skills that I had no opportunity before to have it.
Yeah.
Everything in one kind of experience, which is huge. I like that. So that's basically I would say manage myself better. Of course, it's very general, I would say. You can learn to manage yourself with 100 experiences, but for me, that was like the strongest, in this sense. And also, I would say also how to be diplomatic. So, because you work a lot with people and everyone wants something, right? So if it's your supervisor, if it's your colleagues, if it's whatever, right? So you learn a lot of people skills in this sense. And I consider myself to be good with people skills beforehand, but still, it's completely mastered the game in this sense. So, to be how to form a good negotiation, not to give up on your things and still respect the other person, thinking even as the other person.
The perspectives might vary. They might be just very different, but still even though you disagree, but you have to respect them as
exactly. And I think now thinking about it more in depth, I think especially in academics, you really learn about so many ways of thinking about things. And it's not like one, because think about it. Again, sorry to compare us to the industry, because that's like the contrast. So if you work on a project team, right, so everyone thinks and everyone has one goal. Here you have 100 goals, because everyone has its own project, right? Everyone wants its own way of thinking. And once you see that, how other people manage to work on some things with different ways, so you can learn so much, right? What is good, what is better, whatever, right, to you. So that's very good. So you really actively become very, very, very open-minded.
Okay. Yeah. Wonderful.
All right.
And so, who should do a PhD?
Whoever is interested in research, in research per se, and in research, and likes to the academic vibe, and likes to pursue to become maybe someday a professor, but not necessarily. Someone who really wants to explore something, contribute to the world, someone that is really driven and interested by research.
Yes. Yeah.
Or someone that is driven by some additional goal that needs the PhD for that, which is totally fine. If you want to be a business professor or whatever, or do something, a startup that requires a PhD in medicine, fine, do that. But something that is true, someone that is truly motivated to do that, that's it. Don't do a PhD just of the title, just because you want to be called a doctor and all these things. No,
no, you will regret if it is only for the title.
Exactly.
Often, at least the people who are very humble that I have met with, they don't even use that term their name, because they didn't do their PhD just for the title. It's a proud moment for them, and we should in fact respect them like that. But still, they don't care about
Absolutely.
it.
My parents still hate me because each time I still drop my title, and I said I only use my title when I order pizza just for the fun. It's even now when you ask me in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So I feel weird. I maybe mention in the beginning, but drop it. It's very weird. It's it's not about the title, but
Yes. Yeah. But again, it's a different perspective. Yeah. And so, what do you do in your free time, or when you're not like working on research? Because now your PhD is over, but what did you do at that time, and also now as a postdoc, what do you do in your free time?
So luckily, I did know how to balance my life.
Okay.
And some people would say even much more than work, but actually I worked very hard. But I took almost every weekend to travel somewhere.
Okay.
Like even like in the region or whatever. I did my PhD in Switzerland, so based on the region, it was very, very easy to capture a train, go to Paris, capture a train, go to whatever. So I did that.
Yeah.
Even if it dropped my money completely to almost zero at the end of the month, but I needed that just to travel a lot. I went to a lot of parties, clubs. I like to dance, just to sometimes release myself. Went a lot to thermal baths, so just to relax. Yeah. Just methods to reduce the pressure, and met with friends, a lot of barbecues. So yeah, I was very actively social in this sense, like a lot of friends, a lot of parties. So for me, it gave me the perfect balance because the work was very hard, and I had to learn a lot of new things. And I wasn't that good in the beginning. I was really need to like learn a lot until I felt comfortable. But then again, I always had, because of all the stress, or at least not stress, but like very demanding work, then I always had to balance it with something that is fun for me. And that was a nice motivation.
Yeah, and this is true, right? Like, I mean, when we have the weekends for ourselves to take the break, then during the weekdays we can actually like just focus on work and then look forward for the weekends.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you work on weekends, fine, but also like
yes, there are days.
Absolutely, yeah, but also like I have a stop and also think, okay, now I should reward myself, and then do next week
reward
something
is so
fun.
helpful. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, and then we're talking about the breaks. So, what is your take on mental health and PhD? We discussed this briefly about when you discussed about the last part of the PhD, but still,
Yes, from what I see, there is a definitely connection, and definitely. First, there's a lot of studies that show that, so you cannot be ignored. So you have like statistically, from what I know, might be wrong, but I think from what I know is that mental health problems are more prevalent in PhD candidates, for sure, and it makes sense because there's a lot of pressure. It's extreme. It's also because what I said before. One of my tips is to balance life. Though it's cliche, but it's extremely important because PhD, and again, compared to the industry or other type of jobs, right? So there you have a clear cut. So you 5, 4, whatever people's
wind up their
work, they go home usually, and that it's. Even if it's startup company that they even stay more, it's still there is a clear cut most of the time. In academics, because it's very kind of on the cloud, the type of like in terms of the limitations of when is actually the boundaries. In some countries even blur even more, and I would say specifically, for instance, US, right? So there the work mentality is a bit different. So sometimes even people even can get messages in the middle of the night from the supervisor, or even during the weekdays or whatever, which is fine, depends on, again, how you balance your life. So the idea is that just you really, so what happens with all of that, it's kind of a whirlpool of work. So it can be very easily to just like be put and just work the whole time. It's like you just go and watch Netflix just before sleeping, and that's it. That would be your breaks. It's very easy. I know so many people that does that. And that's bad, because then this is how anxiety, you become depressed, you push your friends, you start not to talk with your family, and especially towards the game, as I said in the last year of the PhD, if you don't get the good social support, social system, or balance your life with some fun activities and all, definitely there's a lot of depression, anxiety, loneliness, frustrations, whatever. And of course, it is bad, but even with that moment, you can even if you get super depressed or even major depressed, even clinically depressed, right? So let's say you can still help that, right? But you need to have the support. So there's always a solution. There's also a solution to avoid it, and also a solution to get help, and there's also a solution to treat it. So whatever you find yourself, right, you can always solve it. You can go to psychologists, you have some pills or whatever, even for a short time. It doesn't mean that you will be clinically depressed for all the time. You can always solve these things, but definitely, there is definitely this risk to have mental health, and it's fine. Once you accept this option, you might be depressed during the PhD, fine. But once you know it, you can do a lot of things, you can do a lot of sports, you can do in order to try to avoid this.
Yeah, this is very important. I mean, to observe ourselves as to what we are doing, because it is so easy to fall in the loop.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
this
the
happens.
risk.
This definitely happens. I mean, once in a while.
Happens,
and especially if you have this workaholic nature. Like, I mean, I can relate to it for myself that I have this. But then still, like, you need other ways to divert yourself and to relax yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think even if you're not workaholic, or even make it even more extreme, the PhD can bring you to become workaholic.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, how did your PhD work affected your private life? Like.
Well, in terms of the moving parts, right? So like a lot of conferences and all that, and but yeah, it's not really the PhD, just the academic path. So let's focus on the PhD. So it made me, as I said, like more, so aside from the bad things that we discussed about, right? So the press towards the end of the year and a lot of stress, and it really made me want to really, now I have to go travel or whatever, right, to release the stress. So the good parts of that, there is a lot, is that because I learned so much topics, for instance in my field, right, so I learned a lot about cognition. So before my PhD, so you asked me, hey Gil, what do you think about embarrassment? Because I don't know, some people get embarrassed, like some funny situation, that's it. But then after I learned, right, about this, when I, one of my research about also like embarrassment and shaming and all that, so now I can explain this and I can actually understand it, and now I can actually see those situations, understand myself better, understand other people better. I'm not saying that I'm analyzing everyone and everything, I'm just saying like understand much better. It's make the life even much easier and much more like rational, so you create a new model of your reality in a much nicer way. So you can even pain, right? So when I learned so much about pain, then I started to advise my mother what to do, right? Because she was something in pain, and I can help others people. And it's wonderful. It's really wonderful. You can learn so much if you do molecular biology, right? So you can learn about some specific treatment or specific things that interest, and then you can advise other colleagues also how to do things, and then you can have a collaboration, a whole new project. So you can have find connections, do things, you sparkle something, right? So in terms of the private life, and then you can maybe become through the time you start to become, actually I'm much more creative than I thought before, so this is actually contribute to that. So you can learn a lot, and you can affect your private life, who you are, what you do, how you help other people, how you interact with other people a lot. It can also make you very angry and grumpy, and then also you interact. But anyway, it can change you both ways. But I think overall, it's a wonderful experience.
Yeah, that's so true, because like I personally was interested a lot about emotions, and my PhD project also focuses a lot on emotions and chronic pain. So it helps us also in our private lives, because when we start to study how emotions are perceived in our brain and how does it affect, which part of the brain is getting affected by it, then you somehow see that why you're behaving like this, then what sort of circuit are you activating. I mean, not everybody does this, but this is one approach that you start applying if you know about that. Well, if you're not aware of that, then you won't do it. And I mean, not everybody has to be aware of that, but it is quite stimulating if you know this, and I mean, it might help others.
Absolutely, I can tell you that not specifically for the PhD, but still, I mean, like the same kind of experience. It could have been my PhD. So my postdoc in Berkeley, so I did neuroeconomics experiments about decision making. And I was completely open to all this world of decision making. And then every time I bought something or thought about even like social decision making, and what's the processes there, and it completely like make me much smarter decision maker, or even like see all the different effects, all the biases. It's really cool.
And talking about the bias here is that if you know that this is a sort of illusion that exists, or if it is a type of bias that happens, then you will not fall for it, right?
Sometimes, still.
I mean, there are cognitive biases, but there are certain biases that you can still avoid by just being aware of those, right?
Yes, definitely, absolutely. But then many times, I would say like the sentence like not all fights are worth fighting for, right? So like cognitively, right? So like you're still aware, you still fall for that. So it's fine.
That's also true.
It's okay, Like in this topic, if you're interested in decision making, so I would suggest to read again by Dana Riediga, this Predictable Irrationality, Predictable Irrational. It's a wonderful book exactly about this funny decision that we know that we're irrational, And it's not that bad, that we're still irrational about that. It's just like need to accept that. But it's funny that you see all these funny situations in life that you can actually fall into or whatever.
Okay, interesting. And now this brings us to the last question of the interview. So what is one message that you want to share with the people who are watching this video already? Like you've shared a lot, but the last message.
I wouldn't say like PhD is wonderful or whatever. No, that's like up to you to decide. I would just say one message is to just follow your heart, like as much cliche as it is.
But
don't follow anyone's hearts, follow your hearts, and even if you don't know what's your hearts, spend time to explore it. If you need to go to South America for 1 year to explore yourself and then come back and, actually I want to PhD in neuroscience, do that. So whatever takes your mind really to think about things and really to culminate on what actually you like and what you even want to try, you don't even know what to like, just start, do something, do something that you want to do, not no one else. That's what I would say.
Wow.
If it's a PhD, then it's perfect. I would say it's great, but like, if it's not, then also perfect. Do whatever you want to do.
I really like your answer for this question. This is so true. I mean, it might be hard to follow our heart because we often try to tune into our brain, but it does signal always, and we need to like listen to it. Yeah.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, the life is not a PhD. The life is not work. The life
yes.
is not.
It's about you.
Exactly. It's about you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
About you.
Yeah. We have to be sometimes selfish in that manner, right? Like,
I don't think it's selfish even. It's just about being true to ourselves.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
I agree. Rephrase it. So thank you, Gil, for sharing all your insights.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And it was a lot of learning for me. I'm glad that we had, the chance to do this interview.
Absolutely. And I hope everyone will have a very good luck with whatever process you choose to do. So good luck.
Yeah. And thanks for watching this. Thank you again.